The Nevada sun hung low and brutal over Camp Gray Rock Joint Training Facility when the unmarked sedan rolled through the West Gate checkpoint, carrying a secret that would destroy 3 careers before the week was out. The base was a study in contradictions, half modern efficiency, half forgotten Cold War monument. Concrete structures that had sheltered Marines since Korea stood beside prefabricated contractor buildings still reeking of fresh paint and broken promises. Joint Task Integration Center. The official designation sounded important, strategic. In reality, it was a holding pattern for personnel nobody quite knew what to do with. Marines controlled most of the physical territory. Navy sent observers when regulations demanded it. Contractors maintained equipment, and everyone pretended the operation mattered. The gate guard processed the sedan's paperwork with the mechanical efficiency born from checking 50 vehicles daily. Military police specialist Bradley Thornton had been stationed at Gray Rock for 11 months. He'd seen colonels and corporals, VIPs and nobodies. The woman in the passenger seat registered as neither. She handed him a manila envelope through the window. No words, just a slight nod. Thornton opened it. Standard orders, transfer documentation, security clearance confirmation. Everything appeared correct. Everything appeared boring. What he didn't see was the red classification stamp on the second page. The one marked Confidential. Naval Special Warfare, Command Eyes Only. The one explaining that Chief Petty Officer Kira Brennan wasn't here to observe joint training operations. She was here to investigate why 2 female Marines had filed Inspector General complaints about systematic harassment at Camp Gray Rock within the last 6 months, and why both had mysteriously requested transfers within 30 days of filing those complaints, and why those complaints had been closed as unsubstantiated without a single formal interview being conducted. But Thornton didn't know any of that. He didn't know that the quiet woman in the sedan was a Navy SEAL with 8 years of combat operations behind her. He didn't know she was documenting everything from the moment she stepped onto base. And he definitely didn't know that by Friday, blood would be spilled in a corridor with no cameras, and the real fight would begin. He just saw another support personnel assignment, another body filling another slot on another endless roster. "Building 7, Chief," he said, handing back the envelope. "Admin will get you sorted." Kira nodded once. The sedan rolled forward. She watched the base unfold through tinted windows. 2 enlisted Marines jogging past the motor pool, a contractor smoking near the maintenance bay, checking his phone, a cluster of personnel in PT gear heading toward what looked like an obstacle course in the distance. Everything normal, everything routine, everything exactly the kind of environment where harassment thrived in the shadows, the kind of environment where predators assumed silence meant weakness. They were about to learn otherwise. The sedan stopped outside Building 7. Kira stepped out carrying 2 items, a standard-issue rucksack that had seen better days, the name tape so faded you could barely read Brennan across the canvas, and a weatherproof notebook, black, unmarked, the kind that fit in a cargo pocket and survived everything from salt water to sandstorms. She'd carried notebooks like that through 8 years of active SEAL operations, through training evolutions in Coronado, through combat deployments in places the Navy preferred not to name in official reports. The difference was those notebooks had contained tactical information, enemy positions, entry points, weak spots in compound walls. This one would document a different kind of target, the kind that wore Marine Corps uniforms and thought they were untouchable, the kind that had already driven out 2 women before her, the kind that wouldn't see her coming until it was far too late. Quick pause before we continue. If you're watching this from somewhere in the world right now, let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're enjoying stories like this, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because tomorrow's episode, it goes even deeper than this. Building 7's interior smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. The admin clerk behind the desk looked up as Kira entered. Petty Officer Second Class Amanda Stroud had processed enough new arrivals to recognize the type. Quiet, professional, probably wouldn't cause trouble. "Chief Petty Officer Brennan," Kira said, sliding her orders across the desk. "Reporting as assigned." Stroud scanned the paperwork. Her eyes caught on something. She blinked. "You're assigned to the Joint Evaluation Program support role?" "Affirmative." Stroud's tone carried a question she didn't quite ask. "We don't usually get SEALs in support roles." Kira's expression didn't change. "I'm here to observe training protocols, provide technical consultation when requested, standard liaison assignment." It wasn't technically a lie. Every word was true. It just wasn't the complete truth. Stroud processed the assignment without further comment. She handed Kira a key card and a base map with her barracks location circled in red marker. "Third floor. You've got a private room. Chow hall's open till 2100. Any questions?" Negative. Stroud watched Kira leave with the same expression she'd give anyone who seemed slightly off script, but not enough to worry about. Another body, another assignment. Another week at Camp Gray Rock, where nothing interesting ever happened. The barracks room was exactly what Kira expected. 2 bunks, 2 wall lockers, 1 small desk, 1 narrow window overlooking the vehicle maintenance yard. No roommate currently assigned, which meant privacy. Privacy meant freedom to work without explaining what she was documenting. She set her rucksack on the far bunk, the one positioned so she could see the door from where she'd sleep. Old habits. SEAL habits. The kind of automatic tactical awareness that became as natural as breathing after enough years operating in environments where the wrong sleeping position could get you killed. The notebook went in her cargo pocket. Always accessible. Always ready. Kira pulled off her black mechanic's gloves and examined her hands in the fading sunlight through the window. Knuckles scarred from 8 years of hand-to-hand combat training. Calluses layered like geological strata, each one representing hundreds of hours gripping weapons, climbing ropes, executing throws and holds and submissions until the movements became muscle memory deeper than conscious thought. These weren't office hands. These were operator hands. She put the gloves back on. Better to keep that detail hidden. Better to let people make their assumptions. A woman in a support role wearing gloves during training. Probably just cautious. Probably didn't want to damage her manicure or whatever stereotypical nonsense they'd project onto her. Let them think that. Let them underestimate. The first rule of intelligence gathering: never show your capability until you're ready to use it. Kira spent the next hour conducting what SEALs call environmental reconnaissance. She walked the barracks, noted exits, identified camera placements, memorized which hallways had blind spots and which had clear lines of sight from security monitoring stations. She located the emergency exits, the fire alarm pull stations, the electrical panels, not because she expected to need any of that information for escape or evasion, but because mapping your environment was fundamental. Because knowing the terrain gave you advantages other people didn't have. Because preparation wasn't paranoia when you were operating alone in potentially hostile territory. And make no mistake, Camp Gray Rock was potentially hostile. 2 women had already been driven out. She intended to make sure there wasn't a third. The chow hall at 1800 hours was controlled chaos. 200 personnel trying to eat dinner in the narrow window between the end of training rotations and the start of evening duties. Marines clustered at their tables. Navy personnel scattered among the contractors. Everyone segregated by invisible tribal boundaries that had nothing to do with official regulations and everything to do with service culture. Kira filled her tray with the efficiency of someone who'd eaten military food in worse conditions than this. Grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, white rice, water. No dessert, no coffee. Nothing that would slow her down or cloud her judgment if she needed to move fast later. She scanned the room, found a table in the back corner. 2 seats, one facing the entrance. She took that one. Always take the seat that lets you see who's coming. She ate alone, watched the room, cataloged faces, identified the loud ones, the quiet ones, the leaders, the followers, observed body language, noted who laughed too hard at jokes that weren't funny, who dominated conversations, who deferred. 15 minutes. That's all she allowed herself. Any longer, and people started noticing you were there. Any shorter, and you looked nervous, rushed, like you didn't belong. 15 minutes was invisible. As she stood to bus her tray, she felt eyes on her. Not unusual. New personnel always drew attention for the first few days. But these eyes felt different. Assessing, measuring, looking for weakness. She didn't turn to identify the source. That would signal awareness. Instead, she walked to the tray return with the same steady pace she'd use anywhere. Confident, but not aggressive. Present, but not challenging. The eyes followed her until she left the building. Kira made note of it in her notebook once she was back in her barracks room. 1807 hours. Chow Hall. Observed surveillance from unknown male personnel. No direct contact, no verbal engagement. Pattern monitoring advised. This was how it started. This was always how it started. The watching. The assessment. The testing to see if you'd react, if you'd show fear, if you'd give them the opening they needed to escalate. She'd seen it before, in training, in the fleet, in combat zones where women were supposed to be support personnel and nothing more, where proving yourself required twice the competence for half the credit. The difference was that this time she wasn't a junior sailor trying to survive. She was a chief petty officer with 8 years of SEAL operations behind her, with a black belt earned through 2,000 hours of training, with a mission from Naval Special Warfare Command itself. This time she was documenting everything. This time when they made their move, she'd be ready. Morning came early at Camp Grey Rock. 5:30 reveille. Physical training at 600. Kira was already awake, already dressed, already conducting her second walkthrough of the base layout by the time the first formation whistle blew. She reported to Building 12, the Joint Training Operations Center, at 7:30 as her orders specified. The building was newer than most on base. Modern HVAC, actual insulation, conference rooms with working projectors. This was where the planning happened, where evaluations were designed, where the appearance of professional standards was carefully maintained. The operations office occupied the second floor. Kira climbed the stairs and entered through double doors marked Authorized Personnel Only, and stopped. Standing at the coffee station, pouring from a pot that had probably been brewing since 500, was a man she hadn't seen in 9 years but would have recognized anywhere. Master Chief Sterling Mackenzie. 62 years old, 6'2", weathered face that looked like it had been carved from desert stone and left to age in the sun. Gulf War ribbons on his uniform. Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, a career that spanned 3 decades of naval special warfare operations. The man who'd been her primary instructor during Bud S. Class 287 in 2009. The man who'd taught her everything about being a SEAL except how to quit. He looked up, saw her, and for exactly 1 second his expression showed recognition. Then it smoothed into professional neutrality. "Chief," he said, just that, just her rank, nothing more. "Master Chief." She matched his tone, formal, appropriate. 2 SEALs who'd never met before this moment, except they both knew better. He gestured toward the coffee pot. "Fresh as of '05, tastes like battery acid, but it's wet and it's hot." "I'm good, Master Chief, thank you." He nodded, took a sip from his own cup, studied her over the rim with eyes that had evaluated hundreds of SEAL candidates and could spot weakness from 300 yards. "You're the new support liaison," he said. "Evaluation program. Affirmative." "Huh." He set his cup down. "We don't usually get operators in support roles." "Budget cuts, needs of the Navy, Master Chief." His eyes narrowed slightly, not suspicious, just reading her the way he'd read 1,000 other sailors who weren't telling him the complete story. But he didn't push. Not here, not in an office where anyone could walk in. "Well," he said, "welcome to Camp Grey Rock. It's not Coronado, but we keep busy. You need anything, my office is down the hall. I run the Legacy SEAL training programs here, cross-service integration, teaching Marines how we do things in the teams." "Understood, Master Chief." He picked up his coffee, turned to leave, then paused. "Brennan," he said quietly, "Class 287, Hell Week, you still over-rotate on hip throws." She almost smiled, almost. "You still counting reps from 2009, Master Chief?" "Every single one," he nodded once. "Good to see you, Chief, even if I don't know why you're really here." Then he was gone, leaving Kira alone in the operations office with the smell of bad coffee and the weight of unspoken questions. But the look he'd given her said everything that mattered. "I know you're here for a reason, and I'll be watching." The first 48 hours at Camp Grey Rock established the pattern that would define everything that followed. Kira attended morning briefings, observed training rotations, logged times, recorded procedures, stayed quiet, stayed professional, stayed completely unremarkable in every possible way. And all the while she documented. 8:15, day 1. Overheard conversation in equipment bay. Corporal identified only as Roar to unidentified male personnel. Quote, "When did they start letting admin pogs on the training floor?" Reference appeared directed at female Navy chief observing circuit training. No direct confrontation. Verbal harassment indirect. 1340, day 1. Weight room observation. Same male personnel, Corporal Roar, subsequently identified via name tape, made comment to companions while Chief was present within audible range. Quote, "Guess the Navy's standards dropped." Laughter from 2 additional male Marines. No direct engagement. Pattern of indirect verbal harassment established. She photographed everything she could without being obvious. Used her phone to capture training schedules posted on bulletin boards. Shot quick pictures of equipment layouts, camera placements, exit routes. Built a tactical picture of the base the same way she'd build one for a target compound. Because that's what this was, a target. Just a different kind. The black gloves stayed on always, during training observations, during equipment handling. During every moment she was visible to base personnel. Let them wonder. Let them make assumptions about the quiet woman who wore gloves like she was afraid to get her hands dirty. Better that than showing the scars too early. She ate alone. 13 minutes per meal, same corner table when possible, always facing the entrance. Always watching, reflections in windows, polished surfaces, the backs of spoons if necessary, and she felt them watching her. Corporal Von Rohr, 28 years old, infantry background, loud without substance. The kind of Marine who could quote regulations but couldn't quite live up to them. Red hair, Irish features, swagger that outpaced his actual rank by about 3 pay grades. Lance Corporal Hollis Grayson, 26. Bald by choice, muscled by effort. Smart enough to follow Rohr's lead, but not smart enough to question whether he should. Lance Corporal Deacon Merritt, 27. The quiet one, constant gum chewer, Midwest accent. The kind who went along because going along was easier than standing up. 3 Marines who'd formed the kind of casual alliance that develops in military environments, not quite friends, not quite a formal unit. Just 3 guys who ate together, trained together, and reinforced each other's worst impulses. Kira logged all of it. By the end of day 2, she had 17 separate incidents documented, none of them severe enough to warrant official complaint, all of them forming a pattern that any competent investigator would recognize as systematic harassment. The kind of pattern that made women transfer out rather than fight. The kind of pattern she was here to break. Day 3 started the same as the previous 2, morning briefing, training observations, documentation. The routine was becoming familiar, almost comfortable. That should have been her first warning. She was in the equipment staging area at 10:15 hours, logging inventory numbers for a quarterly readiness report that didn't actually matter but gave her a reason to be present and observing. The staging area was a 40-foot cage filled with training gear, ropes, harnesses, weighted vests, everything needed for the obstacle courses and conditioning circuits. She was wearing her standard uniform. Woodland camouflage utilities, black mechanics gloves, sleeves rolled to just below the elbow in accordance with regulations. Professional, unremarkable. Except that when she reached up to check a harness on the top rack, her sleeve rode up. Just 3 inches, maybe 4, enough to expose her right wrist. Enough to expose the small black trident tattooed there. The sealed trident, the Budweiser. The symbol that meant you'd survived Bud S, survived SEAL qualification training, survived everything the Navy could throw at you and came out qualified to operate in the most elite special warfare units in the world. She didn't notice Roar standing in the doorway until he spoke. Well, well. His voice carried that particular tone, the one that meant he'd found something he could use. New girls got some ink. Kira lowered her arm, turned slowly. Met his eyes with the kind of neutral expression that gave away absolutely nothing. Corporal, she said, just his rank, just acknowledgement of his presence. He walked closer. Grayson and Merritt materialized behind him like supporting actors who'd been waiting for their cue. That a SEAL trident? Roar asked, not really a question, more like an accusation. Affirmative. Your Navy. Chief Petty Officer, Navy, correct. He laughed, actually laughed. Turned to his companions with a kind of theatrical disbelief that was meant to invite them into the joke. New girl's a squid, he announced. Probably pushes papers at Coronado, makes sure the real operators have their TPS reports filed on time. Grayson chuckled. Merritt just worked his gum and watched. Kira didn't react, didn't defend herself. Didn't explain that she wasn't support personnel, that she'd deployed on actual operations, that she'd earned her trident through the same pipeline that broke 70% of the men who attempted it. She just stood there, calm, professional, waiting. That's what you do, right? Roar pressed. Support role, administrative. Let me guess, you type like 80 words a minute and you make a mean pot of coffee. My assignment here is training, evaluation, and technical consultation, Kira said. Her voice was level, factual. If you have questions about my qualifications, they're available through official channels. Official channels. He repeated it like it was funny. That's Navy talk for I'm not actually qualified for anything. She didn't take the bait. If you'll excuse me, Corporal, I have inventory to complete. She turned back to the equipment rack. Dismissal, clear and professional. Behind her, she heard Roar say something to his companions, too quiet to make out the words. But the tone was clear enough. Mockery, contempt. The sound of men who decided she wasn't worth their respect. That was fine. She didn't need their respect. She needed their mistake. And they were walking toward it faster than they realized. By 1600 hours on day 3, the news had spread. The quiet support liaison was Navy, had a sealed trident, was probably just admin trying to look cool with Operator Inc. The mockery escalated, not dramatically. Not in ways that would trigger official notice. Just the steady drumbeat of small comments, casual dismissals, the 1,000 tiny cuts that add up to systematic harassment. Hey, Chief, you need help carrying that clipboard? Looks heavy. Admins in Building 7 if you got lost again. Careful with those weights. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself before you finish your TPS reports. Kira documented every single comment. Time, location, witnesses, exact wording when possible, approximate wording when necessary. Built a timeline, built a case, and never once responded. That was the key. That was what separated intelligence gathering from confrontation. Don't react, don't engage, don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd gotten to you. Just watch, document, wait. At 1700 hours, she had a visitor. Master Chief Mackenzie appeared in the doorway of the equipment bay where she was completing the inventory she'd started before Roar's interruption. He didn't enter, just stood there, arms crossed, watching her work. "Chief Brennan," he said, formal, official. "Master Chief, got a minute?" "Of course." He gestured toward the hallway. She followed. They walked in silence past the admin offices, past the briefing rooms, all the way to the end of the corridor where a small break room sat mostly empty at this hour. Mackenzie poured himself coffee from a pot that had probably been sitting since lunch. Took a sip, grimaced, looked at her. "You're not here for support liaison work," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Kira kept her expression neutral. "My orders specify, your orders specify whatever cover story NavSpecWar wanted on paper." He set the cup down. "Brennan, I taught you everything, including how to run an intelligence operation, and I recognize one when I see it." She didn't confirm, didn't deny. Mackenzie sighed. "Someone got hurt here, that's why you're here. Who was it?" "Master Chief, I can't tell me, right? Operational security." He studied her face. "How bad? 2 complaints, 2 transfers, 2 cases closed without proper investigation." His jaw tightened. "Harassment. Systematic, documented, buried by someone who decided base cohesion mattered more than justice. And they sent you to document it. They sent me to observe. To see if it happens again, to build a case that can't be buried." Mackenzie was quiet for a moment. Then, "It's Roar." Kira didn't confirm. "Of course it is. Same pattern, loud, aggressive, just smart enough to stay below the threshold that triggers official action, and just connected enough that complaints disappear." He picked up his coffee again. "You know he's going to escalate. I'm counting on it. Brennan, I know what I'm doing, Master Chief. Do you?" His voice carried weight. "Because what I'm seeing is a chief petty officer with a target on her back, operating alone, documenting harassment that might turn into something worse. And I'm wondering what the extraction plan is if things go sideways. The plan is to make sure they don't go sideways. The plan is to document everything until the evidence is so overwhelming that the system has to work. That justice has to happen. That the women who were driven out know someone stood up." Mackenzie looked at her for a long moment. "You believe in the system that much?" "I believe in making the system work even when it doesn't want to." He nodded slowly. You're more stubborn than you were in Bud S. I didn't think that was possible. You taught me that SEALs don't quit, Master Chief, even when quitting would be easier. I also taught you that SEALs assess threats realistically and adapt accordingly. Roar's not going to back down because you're documenting him. He's going to escalate because you're making him look bad in front of his pack. Then I'll document the escalation. And if documentation isn't enough, Kira pulled off her right glove, showed him her knuckles, the scars layered like topographic maps, the calluses that came from 2,000 hours of striking pads, grappling with training partners, executing techniques until failure became impossible. Then I'll adapt accordingly, Master Chief. Mackenzie studied her hands, nodded once. You've kept your quals current. Every year, hand-to-hand instructor certification renewed, black belt maintained. I train 4 times a week minimum, even during deployment cycles. Good, he paused. You remember what I told you during Hell Week, Day 4? You were hypothermic, could barely stand. The instructors were screaming at you to ring the bell. You said SEALs who survive are smarter than SEALs who are just strong. That's right. Strength gets you through the easy parts. Intelligence gets you through the rest. He met her eyes. Be smart about this, Brennan. Document everything, but don't sacrifice yourself trying to prove a point. Understood, Master Chief. He nodded, started to leave, paused at the door. One more thing, that inventory you were doing in the equipment bay, I'm scheduling you for training floor observations starting tomorrow. Joint Combat Evaluation Circuit. You'll be logging performance metrics for the quarterly assessment. Copy that. Roar's squad is scheduled for evaluation Friday. He let that hang in the air. Thought you should know. Then he was gone, leaving Kira alone with her coffee and the weight of what was coming. She pulled her glove back on, flexed her fingers, felt the familiar pressure of the fabric over scarred knuckles. Friday was day 4, less than 24 hours away. She returned to her barracks room and added a new entry to her notebook. 17:30 hours. Master Chief Mackenzie confirmed pattern recognition of systematic harassment. Subject identified as Corporal Von Roar. Timeline acceleration likely. Scheduled training evaluation Friday 700 hours. All 3 subjects, Roar, Grayson, Merritt, confirmed present. Recommend heightened awareness. Escalation probability high. She closed the notebook, lay back on her bunk, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow would be busy. Observation, documentation, maintaining cover. But it was Friday that mattered. Friday when Roar and his companions would be on the training floor under evaluation. Friday when they'd be showing off, proving themselves, demonstrating the aggressive competence that had probably earned them respect in other contexts. Friday when they'd see her there, watching, evaluating, documenting their every move. And Friday evening after the evaluation was complete, after they'd had time to stew in whatever resentment had been building, that's when it would happen. Kira knew it the way you know weather changes, not from any specific sign, just from the pressure in the air, the tension building, the sense that something was gathering force and would have to break eventually. She was ready. She'd been ready since the moment she accepted this assignment. Because Chief Petty Officer Kira Brennan hadn't come to Camp Grey Rock to make friends. She hadn't come to be liked or respected or welcomed. She'd come to document a pattern of harassment, to build a case. To prove that the system could work when someone forced it to. And if that meant becoming the target herself, if that meant weathering whatever storm Roar and his companions decided to throw at her, if that meant standing alone against men who'd already driven out 2 women before her, well. SEALs don't quit. Not during Hell Week. Not during combat, and not now. Day 4, Friday, 1740 hours. The training evaluation had concluded at 16:30. Roar's squad had performed adequately. Not exceptional, just adequate. Kira had logged their times, their form breaks, their technical failures, all of it documented in her notebook with timestamps and objective observations. She'd felt their eyes on her throughout, watching her watch them, resenting her presence, building resentment with every notation she made. Perfect. Now, 90 minutes after the evaluation ended, most of the base was winding down. Personnel heading to Chow, others to the barracks. The training facilities mostly empty except for the diehards running extra circuits or the duty personnel securing equipment. Kira walked through the south equipment corridor, the long one, the one that ran behind the west equipment bay and connected to the barracks via a side entrance most people forgot existed. She'd mapped it on day 1, noted the camera placement. One dome camera at the far end, offline most of the time according to the maintenance logs. The corridor itself, concrete walls, industrial lighting, metal storage cabinets lining both sides. Perfect for storing excess gear. Perfect for isolating someone. She knew they were behind her before she heard them. Knew it from the change in air pressure, from the shadow that appeared in the reflection of a polished metal cabinet, from the instinct that 8 years of combat operations had burned into her nervous system. 3 sets of footsteps, not trying to be quiet, not trying to hide. Just matching her pace, getting closer. She didn't change her speed, didn't look back, just adjusted her path slightly, moving closer to the wall, closer to the cabinets, closer to the polished surfaces that would let her see what was coming without turning around. Roar's voice echoed off concrete. "Awful quiet today, new girl." She didn't respond. "Maybe she's writing another report," Grayson added. "Real important admin work, crucial stuff." Still nothing from Kira. Their footsteps got closer. Then one of them, Merritt, from the sound of it, moved up beside her. Not touching, just close. Invasion of personal space. The first test, she maintained her pace, steady, professional, heading for the end of the corridor. That's when Roar made his move. A shoulder check, hard, direct, meant to send her into the wall. Kira redirected with it. Let the momentum carry her forward instead of sideways. Caught herself with one palm against the concrete. Controlled, balanced, turned to face them. 3 Marines blocking the corridor, spreading out slightly to cut off escape routes that Kira had already mapped and dismissed as unnecessary. She didn't speak, just looked at them. Level stare, no fear, no anger, just assessment. That seemed to make Roar angrier. "Got something to say about our performance today?" he asked. "All those little notes you were taking, want to share your professional opinion?" Kira remained silent. "See, that's the problem with you Navy types." Roar continued, stepping closer. "All talk in the briefing room, all quiet when it actually matters." Grayson flanked left, not aggressive yet, just positioning, creating angles. Kira marked it, cataloged it. Adjusted her own position slightly back toward the wall, hands visible, non-threatening stance. Let them make the first move. Let them prove intent. Let them put it on record. "I think she's scared," Merritt said, working his gum, trying to sound casual and missing by a mile. "Should be scared," Grayson added. "Walking around here like she owns the place, writing her little reports, judging real Marines." Kira's hand moved to her pocket, slow, deliberate, no sudden movements. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it with her thumb, opened the camera app, and took a photograph of all 3 of them standing in the corridor, flash and all. For exactly 2 seconds, nobody moved. Then Roar lunged, not a punch, not yet, just a grab for the phone, quick, aggressive, meant to intimidate. Kira stepped back. Smooth. Practiced, created distance. But Grayson was already moving, coming from the side. His hand shot out, open palm, contact with her shoulder, not a strike, a push. Meant to rock her back, make her stumble. She redirected again, let the force slide past, maintained her balance. But now they were committed, now they'd made contact. Now it was happening. Merritt grabbed for her arm, clumsy, panicked. He wasn't a fighter, just a follower who'd gotten caught up in momentum he didn't understand. Kira pulled her arm back, simple evasion. No technique required, and that's when Roar did it. He stepped forward, planted his rear leg, drove his hips up and forward. A kick, direct, brutal, meant for maximum impact, an upward kick that caught Kira square in the mouth. The sound was immediate, a crack like breaking hardwood. Her head snapped back, blood sprayed across concrete. She dropped to one knee, not from pain, from physics. From the sudden disruption of balance when 200 pounds of force meets teeth and bone. Blood in her mouth, immediate, metallic, the taste of copper and rage. She touched her lower lip with 2 fingers, brought them away red. Felt with her tongue, the lower lateral incisor, fractured, not completely broken, just cracked from root to crown. The kind of damage that would hurt for weeks. She looked up at them. Roar stood there, breathing hard, adrenaline still firing, trying to look defiant. But his eyes showed something else. Uncertainty. The first edge of fear creeping in around his bravado. Grayson had gone pale, Merritt just stared. Nobody spoke. Kira rose slowly, one foot then the other, stood straight. Blood running down her chin, dripping onto her uniform. She raised her phone again, took another photo, this time of her own face, blood clearly visible, the split lip, the uneven tooth line. Then she switched to the front-facing camera, photographed the ground, the blood spatter on concrete, distinct, undeniable. Finally, she turned her phone to show the timestamp. 17:47 hours, then she touched the wall beside her. Deliberately left a clear, bloody fingerprint on the painted concrete. Photographed that too. All of it done in complete silence. No words, no accusations, just documentation. When she was finished, she looked at Roar. He opened his mouth, maybe to speak, maybe to threaten, maybe to apologize. She didn't wait to find out. She just walked past them, steady pace. No running, no fear, just forward movement toward the corridor exit. Behind her, someone whispered something. She didn't catch the words, didn't need to. She'd gotten what she came for. Evidence. Documented. Time-stamped. Photographed. The sound of her boots on concrete echoed in the silence as she walked away from 3 Marines who were just beginning to realize what they'd done. And what was coming next. The medical bay at Camp Grey Rock occupied the ground floor of Building 4. Small. Efficient. Staffed by 2 Navy corpsmen who rotated 12-hour shifts and saw everything from training injuries to the occasional actual emergency that made their jobs feel almost meaningful. Hospital corpsman First Class Tate Aldridge had been stationed at Grey Rock for 18 months, long enough to recognize the difference between an accident and something else. Long enough to know when someone walked through his door carrying more than just an injury. Chief Petty Officer Kira Brennan entered at 18:05 hours. Alone. Face partially obscured by blood that had started to dry in the corners of her mouth. Lower lip swollen. Moving with the kind of controlled precision that suggested she was managing pain through sheer force of will. Aldridge looked up from the desk, saw her, stood immediately. "Chief, what happened?" Kira didn't answer right away. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her cargo pocket, set it on the desk, unfolded it to reveal 3 words written in neat block letters: blunt trauma, internal. Aldridge processed that for exactly 1 second. Then he gestured toward the examination room. "Let me see." She followed him, sat on the examination table without being asked, tilted her head back when he brought over the portable light, opened her mouth when he needed to assess the damage, professional, cooperative, completely silent. Aldridge examined the injury with the methodical care of someone who understood that documentation mattered as much as treatment. Split lip, lower lateral incisor fractured from crown to root. No displacement, but clear crackline visible even without X-ray. Soft tissue damage consistent with blunt force trauma. Impact site showing early bruising. He stepped back. "This needs imaging, X-rays, proper documentation." Kira nodded once. "You want to tell me how this happened?" She pulled out her phone, opened the photo gallery, turned the screen toward him. The first image showed 3 Marines standing in a corridor, clearly confrontational positioning. Timestamp 1746 hours. The second image showed Kira's face, blood fresh, injury obvious. Timestamp 1747 hours. The third image showed blood spatter on concrete, distinct pattern. Timestamp 1747 hours. The fourth image showed a bloody fingerprint on a wall, clear, undeniable. Timestamp 1748 hours. Aldridge looked at the images, looked at her, understood immediately what he was seeing. "You documented it before coming here." "Affirmative. Chief, this looks like assault." "I need medical documentation, written report, photographs." "X-rays, your signature, official timestamp." He studied her face, not the injury, her eyes, saw something there that made him choose his next words carefully. "This goes in the system. Medical report like this triggers mandatory notification. Command gets informed. Investigation starts whether you want it to or not." "I understand. You sure about this? Once I file the paperwork, there's no walking it back." "I'm certain." Aldridge nodded slowly, pulled on examination gloves. Retrieved his medical camera. Began the documentation process that would turn an injury into evidence. He photographed from multiple angles, close-ups of the split lip, wide shots showing facial bruising, detailed images of the fractured tooth visible when she opened her mouth wide enough for the camera flash to illuminate the damage. Then X-rays, portable machine wheeled over, proper positioning. Clear images showing the crack line running through the tooth from root to crown. Undeniable proof of impact force. While the X-ray machine processed the images, Aldridge sat at his desk and began typing the medical report. Official format, clinical language, but every word chosen to paint a clear picture. Patient, CPO Kira Brennan, time of presentation, 1805 hours, chief complaint. Oral trauma physical examination reveals blunt force trauma to lower lip resulting in 3 cm laceration and significant swelling. Lower left lateral incisor shows vertical fracture visible on clinical examination and confirmed via X-ray imaging. Injury pattern consistent with direct upward strike to facial region. Patient reports incident occurred at approximately 1747 hours. Patient arrived at medical facility independently. Patient cooperative during examination. No other injuries noted. Treatment, wound irrigation, ice application, dental consult recommended. Disposition, return to duty with follow-up in 24 hours. Clinical assessment, blunt force trauma, facial region, likely mechanism, direct strike from external force. Recommend command notification and incident investigation. He printed the report, signed it, time-stamped it, handed it to Kira. You'll need to sign acknowledging you received a copy. She read through it, every word, then signed. Aldridge filed his copy in the medical records database. Sent automatic notification to the base medical officer. Copied the command duty officer. Created a paper trail that couldn't be erased or ignored. You want pain medication? He asked. Negative, just cleaning. He irrigated the wound with saline, applied antibiotic ointment, handed her an ice pack wrapped in gauze. Keep that on for 20 minutes, off for 20, repeat. The swelling should start coming down by morning. He paused. The tooth needs a dentist soon. That crack goes all the way through. Could get infected. Understood. Chief. He waited until she looked at him. Whatever happened in that corridor, whoever did this, they made a mistake going after a seal. Kira's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Acknowledgement, recognition that Aldridge understood more than she'd said. Thank you, HM1. She stood, walked toward the door, paused with her hand on the frame. The report you filed, it goes to the command duty officer automatically. They'll have it within the hour. Good. Then she was gone, walking back into the Nevada evening with an ice pack pressed to her mouth, and a documented assault in the medical system that would reach the right people whether anyone wanted it to or not. Aldridge sat at his desk for a long moment after she left. Then he opened his secure email and sent a copy of the medical report directly to Master Chief Sterling Mackenzie. Not because regulations required it, but because instinct told him Mackenzie needed to know. And because 20 years as a Navy corpsman had taught him to recognize when someone was building a case. By 2100 hours, the story had already mutated beyond recognition. The official version, documented in medical records and incident reports, was straightforward. Chief Petty Officer Brennan sustained facial trauma. Medical treatment provided. Command notified. The unofficial version spreading through barracks and group chats bore almost no resemblance to reality. She'd cried. Begged them to stop. Run to medical claiming assault when everyone knew she'd just fallen during training. Typical Navy softness. Couldn't handle real Marine intensity. Corporal Von Rohr sat in his barracks room with Grayson and Merritt, watching the story evolve in real time on his phone. 53 messages in the group chat, screenshots being shared, theories being proposed. Most of them painting Brennan as exactly what Rohr needed her to be, weak, emotional, unreliable. Told you she'd run crying to medical, Rohr said, scrolling through messages. That's what they always do, can't handle the heat, so they file complaints. Grayson wasn't so sure. Dude, you kicked her pretty hard, I heard her tooth crack. She shouldn't have been standing there, shouldn't have been taking pictures, shouldn't have been acting like she had authority over us. Merritt worked his gum nervously. What if she actually reports it, like officially? Reports what? We were walking down a corridor. She got in the way. Accidents happen during training. Rohr leaned back against his bunk. Besides, there's 3 of us, one of her, no cameras in that corridor, our word against hers. But even as he said it, something nagged at him. The way she'd stood up after he kicked her, no tears, no screaming, just that cold, level stare, and then the photographs. Why had she photographed them? Why document it like that unless, no, he pushed the thought away. She was admin, support personnel. Probably didn't even know how to file a proper complaint. Probably just wanted to have something to show her friends back at whatever desk job she'd return to after this assignment. $20 says she transfers out by Monday, Rohr announced to the room. Just like the last ones, they talk tough, file their little complaints, then disappear when they realize nobody cares. Grayson wanted to believe that. Merritt needed to believe it, so they did. While 3 Marines convinced themselves the problem would disappear, Master Chief Sterling Mackenzie sat in his quarters reading Aldridge's medical report for the 3rd time. Blunt force trauma, fractured tooth. Patient reports incident occurred at approximately 1747 hours. Recommend command notification and incident investigation. He'd also received the photographs from Kira. She'd sent them via encrypted message at 1830 hours. No explanation, just the images. 3 Marines in a corridor, her bloody face, the blood spatter, the fingerprint, building a case exactly like he'd taught her during intelligence training. Document everything, create undeniable evidence, make it impossible for the system to look away. The problem was that Mackenzie knew the system, knew how it protected its own, knew that 3 Marines would claim training accident, and 1 Navy chief's word wouldn't be enough to overcome institutional inertia. Unless the Navy chief happened to be building something bigger than a single incident report. He pulled up Kira's service record, reviewed her qualifications, 8 years SEAL operations, hand-to-hand combat instructor certified, black belt Krav Maga, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt working toward black, 89 students trained and graduated through her CQC courses. Then he opened the base training schedule for Monday morning. Joint Physical Readiness Circuit, 700 hours. Instructor of record, currently unassigned, pending operations approval. Mackenzie spent 15 minutes drafting an email, then sent it to Lieutenant Commander Patricia Volkov, the operations officer who handled training schedules. Subject: Instructor assignment request, hand-to-hand combat evaluation. Patricia, requesting CPO Brennan be assigned as primary instructor for Monday's Joint Readiness Circuit. Her qualifications exceed requirements. Her availability is confirmed. Suggest we utilize Navy SEAL expertise for cross-service training benefit. Full instructor credentials attached. Respectfully, MCPO Mackenzie. He hit send, then sat back and waited. Volkov responded within 20 minutes, approved. Brennan assigned as primary instructor, roster assignments at her discretion. Good hunting, Master Chief. Mackenzie smiled. Volkov was sharp. She'd seen the medical report too, probably put the pieces together faster than most. He opened a new message. This one to Kira. You're on the training floor Monday, 700, primary instructor. Roster assignments are yours, make it count. Her response came 2 minutes later. Understood. Thank you, Master Chief. Then one more line, they won't see it coming. Mackenzie's smile widened. No, they wouldn't, because Corporal Rohr and his companions had made a fundamental tactical error. They'd assumed that silence meant weakness. That documentation meant fear. That a woman who walked away from an assault without fighting back was someone they'd already beaten. They had no idea what Monday morning would bring. Saturday morning broke cold and clear over Camp Grey Rock. Most personnel took weekends easy, slept late, hit the gym casually, caught up on administrative tasks that piled up during the week. Kira was awake at 5:30, same as always. Her lip had swollen overnight. The bruising had darkened from red to purple. The cracked tooth sent sharp jolts of pain whenever she moved her jaw wrong. She'd barely slept, partly from pain, mostly from planning. She spent the morning reviewing training protocols, hand-to-hand combat evaluation standards, performance metrics, proper technique requirements, everything she'd need to run Monday's session by the book. More importantly, she spent the morning reviewing the roster. Joint Physical Readiness Circuit participants were divided into squads of 8. 4 squads total. 32 personnel, mixed Marines and Navy. Random assignment under normal circumstances, but these weren't normal circumstances. And as primary instructor, roster assignments fell under her discretion. She opened the personnel database, searched 3 names: Corporal Von Rohr, Lance Corporal Hollis Grayson, Lance Corporal Deacon Merritt, currently assigned to different squads based on the previous schedule. Kira reassigned them, Squad 1, all 3 together, first rotation. First station. Then she designed the stations. Station 1, Weapon Retention Drill. Opponent attempts to strip training rifle from your grip. Requires proper hand placement, rotational control, muzzle discipline. Tests whether you understand leverage or just rely on strength. Station 2, Ground Control Escape. Partner has you in modified mount position. Escape without giving up your back. Requires hip mobility, technical knowledge, staying calm under pressure. Station 3, Standing Clinch Control. Opponent grabs your uniform. Establish control and create safe distance. Tests whether you can manage close quarters contact without panicking. All standard drills, all legitimate training exercises, all designed to expose technical weaknesses in people who relied on aggression instead of skill. She saved the roster, uploaded it to the training system, made it official. Then she went to the gym. The base weight room was nearly empty at 800 on a Saturday. Just a few dedicated lifters and one contractor running on the treadmill with headphones blocking out the world. Kira wrapped her hands, black cotton wraps that she'd used for 8 years, frayed at the edges but still functional. She worked the heavy bag for 40 minutes, jabs, crosses, hooks, uppercuts, each impact sending vibrations through her fractured tooth, each jolt of pain sharpening her focus. This wasn't training, this was meditation, this was preparation. This was the mental work that separated people who talked about violence from people who could execute it when necessary. 60 rounds, 3 minutes each. 20-second rest between rounds. By the end, her hands ached and her lip had started bleeding again through the scab. She unwrapped, washed her hands, examined her knuckles in the mirror. The scars looked darker against her pale skin. Reminders of every sparring session, every training evolution. Every moment she'd chosen to get better instead of giving up. Monday, those scars would be visible. Monday, the gloves would come off. Monday, everyone would see what they'd missed. The group chat exploded at 2100 hours Sunday evening. Someone had checked the Monday training schedule, saw the roster update, saw who was assigned as primary instructor. CPO Brennan, the new girl. The admin squid who'd run crying to medical. She was running Monday's hand-to-hand combat evaluation. Rohr's phone lit up with notifications. Message after message. Most of them laughing, some confused, a few concerned. You going to let her evaluate you, bro? This is going to be hilarious. She probably can't even do a push-up. Maybe she'll cry again when you fail her station. Rohr read through them, felt his confidence return. This was perfect. Better than perfect. She was putting herself in front of everyone, setting herself up for embarrassment. She thinks she can evaluate us, he said to Grayson and Merritt, who'd gathered in his room when the news broke. Actually thinks she's qualified to judge Marines on combat skills. Grayson looked less cert. Dude, she's a SEAL, she's got to have some training. She's got a tattoo and a support role, big difference. Roar scrolled through the station assignments. These are basic drills, weapon retention, ground escape, clinch control, stuff we've done 100 times. Merritt nodded slowly. So we just do the drills, show her up, make her look stupid for even trying. Exactly. Roar tossed his phone on his bunk. Tomorrow morning we go in there, ace every station, and make it real clear that admin personnel don't get to judge operators. What none of them noticed was the roster detail buried in the assignment notes. Squad 1, first rotation. Stations 1-3. Roar, Grayson, Merritt, all together, all in the first group. All under direct observation from the primary instructor. Not random assignment. Strategic positioning, but they didn't see it, didn't think to question it, didn't consider that someone might be setting conditions for something other than standard training. While 3 Marines planned to embarrass their instructor, Kira sat in her barracks room reviewing video footage, training clips from her own CQC courses, students learning throws, practicing submissions, executing the techniques that would become second nature after enough repetition. She'd taught 89 SEAL candidates these exact movements, watched them progress from clumsy beginners to competent operators, corrected their form, pushed them past failure, made them better. Tomorrow she'd teach 3 Marines a different lesson, not about technique, not about combat effectiveness, about consequences, about what happens when you mistake silence for weakness, about what a Navy SEAL instructor looks like when the gloves come off. She closed her laptop, set her alarm for 500, lay back on her bunk. The swelling in her lip had reduced slightly. The tooth still hurt, but she'd learned to manage the pain. In some ways, the injury helped, kept her focused, reminded her why Monday mattered. 2 women had been driven from this base, harassed until they chose transfer over justice, their complaints buried, their voices silenced. Monday morning, Kira would make sure their silence ended, not with words, not with complaints, not with appeals to fairness or equality or any concept that men like Roar dismissed as political correctness, with demonstration, with undeniable proof of capability, with the kind of performance that made arguing impossible because the evidence was right there in front of everyone. She touched her lip gently, felt the crack in her tooth with her tongue. Pain was temporary. Documentation was permanent. And Monday morning would be very well documented indeed. 6:45 Monday morning. The air carried that particular desert chill that promised heat later but felt almost cold in the pre-dawn darkness. 40 personnel assembled outside the physical training complex in loose formation. Marines mostly. A handful of Navy. 2 contractors who'd been voluntold to participate because the training coordinator needed numbers. They stood in 4 rows. Squad assignments already posted on the whiteboard near the entrance. Equipment staged and ready. Standard Monday morning. Standard training evolution. Except for the laminated card posted above the whiteboard. Hand-to-hand combat evaluation primary instructor. CPO Brennan Station assignments. See roster evaluation begins 700 hours. Roar arrived at 6:50, late enough to make an entrance, early enough to avoid official notice. Grayson and Merritt flanked him like supporting actors who'd learned their blocking. Roar scanned the formation, spotted the roster board, saw his name listed under Squad 1 first rotation. Perfect. Get it done early, show everyone how this was supposed to work. Then he saw the instructor assignment and grinned. "New girls really doing this," he said to Grayson. "This is going to be entertainment." A few other Marines had noticed, too, whispers spreading through formation, not hostile, just curious. Wondering how someone who'd filed a medical complaint 3 days ago planned to run a combat evaluation. At 6:58, the door to the PT complex opened. Chief Petty Officer Kira Brennan stepped out. Black training pants, fitted, professional, gray T-shirt with the Navy SEAL trident printed small over the left chest. No rank visible, no name tape, just the trident, and no gloves. For the first time since arriving at Camp Grey Rock, her hands were completely visible. Knuckles scarred, calluses layered. Fighter's hands displayed for everyone to see. Her lip was still swollen. The bruising had shifted from purple to yellow-green. When she opened her mouth to speak, the uneven tooth line was obvious. She walked past the formation, stepped onto the wooden riser that served as the instructor platform, turned to face the assembled personnel. 40 sets of eyes locked on her. She let the silence build for exactly 5 seconds. Command presence wasn't about volume. It was about owning the space you occupied. "Formation," she said, just that one word. But the tone carried authority that made everyone unconsciously straighten. Even Roar shifted his weight slightly. Kira pulled a laminated card from her pocket, read from it in the same level, emotionless tone. 3-station combat assessment. Station 1, weapon retention under opposition. Station 2, ground control escape from modified mount. Station 3, standing clinch control and disengagement. Each station is timed. Performance will be logged. Standards are non-negotiable. She lowered the card, looked across the formation. "This is not strength training. This is technical evaluation. Strength without technique is ineffective. Aggression without control is dangerous. Size without skill is irrelevant. Anyone who fails to demonstrate proper form will repeat the station until standards are met or until I determine they are incapable of meeting them." Someone in the back row coughed. Tried to cover a laugh. Kira's eyes found him, held his gaze for 2 seconds. The laughter died. She pointed at the whiteboard. "Squad assignments are posted. Station rotations are fixed. You will move when instructed. You will execute techniques as demonstrated. You will maintain safety protocols at all times." Pause. Questions? Silence. "Outstanding. Squad 1 report to Station 1. Remaining squads observe from designated positions." She stepped off the platform, walked toward the first station. Didn't look back to see if they followed. Didn't need to. Command presence meant people followed because the alternative felt wrong. Squad 1 moved toward Station 1. 8 personnel, Roar, Grayson, and Merritt among them. Kira stood at the station. 2 training rifles already positioned, foam barrels weighted to approximate real weapons but safe for contact drills. "Weapon retention," she announced. "Opponent attempts to strip the rifle from your grip. Your objective, maintain control using proper hand placement and rotational technique. Failure means losing the weapon. In combat, that means losing your life." She picked up one of the training rifles, held it in a standard ready position. "Demonstrate proper grip," she showed them. Support hand on the forward grip, firing hand on the pistol grip, thumb positioned over the selector, elbows tucked, weight balanced. When someone attempts to strip your weapon, your instinct will be to pull back. That's wrong. Pulling back creates a strength competition. Strength competitions are unreliable. She gestured to one of the Squad 1 members who wasn't Roar. Private First Class Hayes, built like a linebacker. "Hayes, attempt to strip the rifle from my hands." Hayes stepped forward, grabbed the barrel, pulled. Kira didn't pull back, she rotated. Turned the barrel toward his thumbs, his weakest grip point, stepped back at an angle. Created leverage that had nothing to do with strength and everything to do with geometry. Hayes's grip broke. The rifle stayed in Kira's hands. Rotation, not strength. Technique, not force. She handed the rifle to Hayes. Your turn, Roar, you're his opponent. Roar stepped forward, grinned, grabbed the barrel when Hayes presented the weapon. Hayes pulled straight back, just hauled on it with raw strength. Roar was stronger. He ripped the rifle free in 3 seconds. Kira's voice cut through the morning air. Improper technique, zero retention, failure. She marked something on her clipboard. Reset, Hayes, do it correctly this time. Rotate the barrel toward his thumbs, step back at an angle, use leverage. Hayes tried again, better this time, not perfect but functional. Roar still got the rifle. Marginal, Kira noted. Passing but needs refinement. She looked at Roar. Your turn, Grayson is your opponent. Roar took the rifle. Presented it in what he probably thought was proper ready position, but his elbows were flared, his support hand too far back, his weight too far forward. Grayson grabbed the barrel, pulled. Roar just muscled it, yanked back hard enough to make Grayson stumble. Kira's pen moved across her clipboard. Improper form, no rotational control, zero muzzle discipline, failure. Roar turned. I kept the weapon. You pulled straight back. In a real scenario, your opponent redirects your force and takes your balance. You lose the weapon and potentially your life. That's a failure. She gestured to the next pair. Reset, next team. For the next 20 minutes, Squad 1 rotated through Station 1. Some passed, most needed correction. A few failed completely and had to repeat. Kira logged every performance, every technical flaw, every moment of proper form, and every breakdown in discipline. When Squad 1 finished Station 1, they moved to Station 2, ground control escape. This one was worse for them. Most had never trained proper Brazilian jiu-jitsu escapes. They thrashed, they used strength. They gave up their backs, got their guards past, made fundamental errors that any white belt would recognize. Kira corrected every mistake, demonstrated proper technique, made them repeat until they either got it right or proved they couldn't. Roar was particularly bad. Flat on his back under his partner's mount, he just tried to bench press the other man off him. Pure strength, zero technique. Improper escape mechanics, Kira noted. No hip movement, no frame creation, no technical understanding. Failure. This is bullshit, Roar muttered. Kira's head turned. Repeat that, Corporal. Roar met her eyes. I said this is bullshit. We're infantry, not grapplers. Infantry who don't understand ground control die when their weapons jam and the enemy closes distance. Technical competence saves lives. Your opinion of the training is irrelevant. Your performance is what's being evaluated. She marked her clipboard. Reset, try again. He didn't do better the second time. By the time Squad 1 reached Station 3, the standing clinch control drill, everyone watching had started to understand what was happening. This wasn't training. This was exposure. Every technical weakness, every reliance on strength over skill, every gap in their supposed competence, and Chief Petty Officer Brennan was documenting all of it. When the circuit finally ended at 8:30, Squad 1 looked exhausted, not from physical effort, from repeated failure, from being corrected again and again in front of everyone. Kira stood on the platform one more time. Circuit complete. Evaluations logged. Performance reports will be filed with command by 1200 hours today. Those who failed standards have 48 hours to request remedial training. Dismissed. The formation broke. Personnel scattered toward the barracks, toward Chow, toward anywhere that wasn't under Kira's level stare. Roar walked past her without making eye contact. Grayson followed. Merritt kept his head down. As they left, one of the observing Marines, a corporal from Squad 3, approached Kira hesitantly. "Chief, can I ask a question?" "Affirmative." "Where'd you learn those techniques, the ground control stuff?" "Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 8 years training, brown belt working toward black, 2,000 hours documented mat time." The Marine's eyes widened slightly. "And the weapon retention, SEAL close quarters combat course, I'm a certified instructor, 89 graduates trained." "Holy shit," he caught himself. "I mean understood, Chief, thanks." He walked away, but Kira heard him say to his buddy, "Dude, she's not admin, she's an actual SEAL instructor." The word would spread. By lunch, everyone would know. By dinner, the story would evolve. By tomorrow, Kira Brennan wouldn't be new girl anymore. She'd be something else entirely. She gathered her clipboard, her notes, her documentation of every failure, every technical gap, every moment of weakness disguised as strength. Then she walked back toward the admin building to file her report. Behind her, Master Chief Mackenzie stood near the equipment bay entrance. He'd watched the entire evolution, seen every technical correction, every calm, professional dismantling of bloated confidence. He caught her eye as she walked past, nodded once. She returned it. No words needed. They both knew what Monday morning had accomplished. And they both knew what would come next, because men like Roar didn't learn from embarrassment. They escalated, they retaliated, they made mistakes driven by ego instead of strategy. Kira was counting on it. The gloves were off. The capability was demonstrated. The documentation was building. Now she just had to wait for them to make their final, fatal move, and she wouldn't have to wait long. The barracks room felt smaller than it had that morning. Corporal Von Rohr sat on his bunk, staring at his phone like it might spontaneously combust. 73 messages in the group chat. Most of them weren't sympathetic. "Bro, you got schooled by new girl. She made you look like a boot in front of everyone. Maybe next time ask if she's qualified before talking shit. That ground escape was embarrassing, man. She called you out hard." Grayson paced near the window. Merritt worked his gum so hard his jaw had started to ache. The silence between them carried weight. The kind that builds when men realize they've miscalculated badly and don't want to admit it out loud. "She set us up," Roar finally said, voice low, controlled, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. "Put all 3 of us in the same squad, first rotation, made sure everyone was watching when we failed her bullshit standards." "Those weren't bullshit standards," Grayson said quietly. "She demonstrated every technique, we just couldn't execute them." Roar's head snapped up. "Whose side are you on?" "I'm not on anyone's side, I'm just saying she knew what she was doing. Those were legitimate drills. We looked bad because we actually performed badly. We performed badly because she designed the evaluation to make us fail. Weapon retention based on rotation instead of strength. Ground control that requires technical knowledge we've never been taught. That's rigging the test." Merritt stopped chewing. "What if she reports the scores to command? Official evaluation failures go in our records." That got Roar's attention. Official documentation, performance reports, black marks that followed you through your career. The kind of thing that affected promotions, assignments, everything that mattered. and Brennan had said she'd file the reports by 1200 hours. "She's not filing anything," Roar said, standing now pacing energy building. "We're going to talk to her, clear the air, make her understand that evaluation was inappropriate and those scores don't reflect our actual capability." "Talk to her," Grayson repeated flatly. "Like we talked to her Friday in the corridor." That was different. That was heat of the moment. "This is professional. We approach her, explain the situation, request she reconsider the evaluation parameters." "And if she says no?" Roar's jaw tightened. "She won't, because she knows what happens if she pushes this. She knows 3 Marines standing together have more credibility than 1 Navy squid with an agenda." Merritt glanced at his phone. "Dude, people are saying she's an actual SEAL instructor, like certified, like she's trained actual operators." "I don't care what people are saying. She's support personnel who got lucky with some hand-to-hand training. That doesn't make her qualified to evaluate combat Marines." Roar pulled up his text messages, opened a new thread, typed quickly. The message went to Kira's official Navy email. "Standard military communication channel. Professional. Appropriate. Chief Brennan, Squad 1 requests meeting to discuss this morning's evaluation parameters. Concerns regarding assessment methodology and scoring criteria. Available tonight 2100 hours, Gym Annex. Respectfully, Corporal Roar." He hit send before Grayson could object. "There, professional communication, official channels. She can't claim harassment when we're following proper procedure." Grayson looked skeptical. "What if she brings someone with her, another instructor, Master Chief Mackenzie? Then we have a professional discussion with multiple parties present. Either way, those scores don't get filed without us having our say." What Roar didn't understand, what he couldn't see because ego blocked his vision, was that Kira had been waiting for exactly this message. Waiting for them to commit to a time, a place, a meeting that she could prepare for and document and turn into the final piece of evidence that would make their careers implode. She read the message at 13:15 hours. Sitting in the operations office, filing her evaluation reports exactly as promised. Every performance logged, every failure documented, every technical gap noted in clinical, objective language that couldn't be disputed. Squad 1, Station 1, weapon retention drill. Corporal Roar demonstrated improper grip mechanics, 0 rotational control, and failure to maintain muzzle discipline. Performance rating, unsatisfactory. Remedial training required. Squad 1, Station 2, ground control escape. Corporal Roar demonstrated no hip mobility, improper frame creation, and reliance on strength over technique. Performance rating, unsatisfactory. Remedial training required. Squad 1, Station 3, standing clinch control. Corporal Roar demonstrated inability to establish control, improper weight distribution, and panic response under pressure. Performance rating, unsatisfactory. Remedial training required. Similar entries for Grayson. For Merritt. For every member of Squad 1 who'd failed to meet standards, she filed the reports, sent copies to command, said Master Chief Mackenzie, created an official record that couldn't be erased or modified. Then she opened Roar's message, read it twice, smiled slightly. The split in her lip pulled against healing tissue, but she didn't care. They'd committed to meeting her. Gym Annex, 2100 hours, 3 of them, 1 of her, no official witnesses, perfect. She typed her response, Corporal Roar, I will meet you at the Gym Annex at 2100 hours as requested. Come prepared to discuss specific technical deficiencies noted during evaluation. Respectfully, Chief Brennan, professional, appropriate, giving them exactly what they'd asked for while setting conditions they didn't understand. Then she sent a second message, this one to Master Chief Mackenzie, meeting scheduled tonight, 2100 hours, Gym Annex. Roar, Grayson, Merritt. They requested discussion of evaluation scores. I accepted. Recommend you monitor security feed. Do not intervene unless absolutely necessary. I need this documented. Mackenzie's response came within minutes. Understood. I'll be watching. Be smart about this, Brennan. She had no intention of being anything else. Kira spent the afternoon conducting reconnaissance that would look routine to anyone watching. She visited the gym annex at 14:30 hours, ostensibly to inventory equipment for the quarterly logistics report, actually to map every camera, every sightline, every tactical advantage the space offered. The gym annex was separate from the main fitness center. Smaller, older, used mostly for specialized training that needed space away from the standard weight room chaos. Conditioning circuits, plyometric drills, hand-to-hand combat practice. 4 dome cameras. Kira checked them all. 3 were standard visual-only fixed positions, coverage gaps in the corners and near the equipment storage. The 4th camera was different, newer, positioned in the far corner with clear sightlines to the main training area. And according to the maintenance log she'd accessed that morning, this one had audio capability. Most people didn't know that. Most people assumed base security cameras were visual surveillance only. But certain high-value areas had been upgraded with audio after a training incident 2 years ago, when visual footage hadn't captured the verbal exchange that preceded an assault. The gym annex was one of those areas. Kira positioned herself in the center of the room, looked up at the audio-capable camera, calculated angles. The coverage zone extended approximately 15 feet in radius from the camera's position. Everything within that zone would be recorded with full audio. She walked the perimeter, marked the audio boundary mentally, then adjusted equipment, weight bench left, training mats repositioned, vertical rack forward. Minor changes that funneled foot traffic toward the camera's coverage zone. Natural, undetectable, perfect. By 15:30 hours, the room was configured perfectly. Anyone entering would naturally move toward the center. Any confrontation would happen within range of audio recording. Any physical contact would be captured with sound and vision. Kira returned to her barracks, showered, changed into fresh utilities, examined her face in the mirror. The swelling had reduced significantly. The bruising had faded to yellow-green. The crack in her tooth still sent occasional jolts of pain, but she'd learned to manage it. She touched the scar on her lip gently, proof of Friday's assault, evidence that couldn't be denied or explained away. And tonight, she'd add more evidence to a case that was becoming airtight. She spent the next 3 hours reviewing hand-to-hand combat techniques. Not training, just visualization, running through scenarios, practicing responses in her mind until they were automatic. 3 attackers, larger, stronger, aggressive. Standard SEAL CQC doctrine, use their aggression against them. Redirect force, control center of gravity, strike only when necessary, prioritize control over damage. She'd taught this exact scenario to 89 students. Drilled it until their responses were instinctive. Now she'd demonstrate for an audience of security cameras and one master chief who understood exactly what he was witnessing. At 2,000 hours, she received a text from Master Chief Mackenzie. "Security feed is live. I'm watching. MPs on standby 2 buildings away. Give the word and they're there in 30 seconds. She replied, "Negative on MP standby. I need this to play out. Only intervene if I signal or if someone sustains serious injury." His response took longer this time. "Understood. I don't like it, but I understand. Be careful, Chief. Always Master Chief." At 20:45 hours, Kira left her barracks, walked across the compound toward the gym annex. The night air was cool, clear, stars visible despite the ambient light from base facilities. She entered the gym annex at 20:50, 10 minutes early. Gave herself time to set final conditions. She placed her phone on the weight bench, screen visible, recording app active, timestamp displayed, backup documentation in case something happened to the security feed. Then she removed her gloves, set them on the bench next to her phone, visible, deliberate, establishing that she came unarmed, unprepared for combat, expecting a professional discussion. Finally, she positioned herself in the center of the room, directly under the audio-capable camera. Hands at her sides, open stance, non-threatening posture, and waited. They arrived at 21:03, 3 minutes late, probably intentional, small power play making her wait. Roar entered first. Grayson and Merritt flanked him within seconds. They'd positioned themselves before entering, coordinated their approach. This wasn't spontaneous. The gym was dimly lit. They'd turned off some of the overhead fluorescents, creating shadows, reducing visibility, trying to control the environment. But Kira had mapped this room in full light. She knew every shadow, every corner, every angle. Roar stopped 10 feet away, far enough to maintain distance, close enough to be confrontational. "Chief Brennan," he said, tone professional, but the edge underneath was clear. "Thanks for meeting us." "Corporal," she kept her voice level, calm. "You wanted to discuss this morning's evaluation." "That's right. We have concerns specifically about the methodology. The techniques you were testing for aren't standard infantry training. Expecting us to perform at the level of specialists who have had years of specific martial arts instruction isn't reasonable. The techniques tested are fundamental close-quarters combat skills. Every Marine should be capable of basic weapon retention, ground control, and clinch management. Those aren't specialty skills, they're survival skills." Grayson stepped slightly left. Merritt drifted right. Flanking positions, not aggressive yet. Just creating angles. Kira tracked the movement peripherally, didn't react, just noted it. "Survival skills we've never been formally trained in," Roar countered. "You can't evaluate us on material we haven't been taught. The training exists. You chose not to pursue it. That's not an evaluation failure. That's a professional development gap." "Or," Roar said, stepping closer, "it's a biased instructor using her personal skill set to make Marines look incompetent." "The evaluation was objective. I demonstrated every technique. You failed to execute them. That's documented fact, not bias." "Documented by you, filed by you, using standards you defined. That's not objective. That's you pushing an agenda." Kira's expression didn't change. "What agenda would that be, Corporal?" "The same one you had Friday when you walked down that corridor taking pictures. The same one you had when you filed your medical report claiming assault. The same one you've had since you arrived here, trying to prove something about women in combat roles." There it was, the real accusation, the actual resentment. Kira let the silence build for 3 seconds. I filed a medical report documenting blunt force trauma to my face. That's not an agenda. That's following proper procedure after being assaulted by 3 Marines who thought a woman wouldn't fight back. Nobody assaulted you, Roar shot back. You got in the way during a training evolution. Accidents happen. Accidents don't kick upward into someone's mouth. Accidents don't fracture teeth. Accidents don't result in 3 men surrounding 1 woman in an isolated corridor with no cameras. There were no cameras because nothing happened that needed documentation. You're making something out of nothing. I'm documenting patterns of harassment and assault. You're attempting to intimidate me into withdrawing legitimate complaints. We're not the same. Roar took another step forward. Now only 5 feet separated them, well within the audio coverage zone, every word being recorded with perfect clarity. You want to know what I think? His voice dropped lower, harder. I think you came here looking for trouble. I think you put yourself in situations hoping someone would react. I think you're using your gender as a weapon to destroy the careers of Marines who have done nothing wrong. I came here to investigate complaints filed by 2 female Marines who were harassed until they transferred out. You and your companions matched the behavioral pattern described in those complaints. You escalated from verbal harassment to physical assault in under 72 hours. That's not me creating trouble, that's you being predictable. Merritt shifted his weight nervously. Chief, we're not trying to... Shut up, Roar snapped at him, then back to Kira. Those evaluation scores don't get filed. You withdraw them. You admit the testing methodology was flawed. You stop this crusade before it costs all 3 of us our careers. The scores are already filed. They were submitted at 1200 hours as promised. They're in the official system, copied to command, documented, permanent. Roar's jaw clenched. Then you unfile them, you submit a correction, you make this go away. I don't falsify documentation. The scores reflect actual performance. If you want different results, improve your performance. This isn't about performance. Roar's voice rose, volume increasing, control slipping. This is about you using your position to punish Marines who didn't show you the respect you think you deserve. I don't require respect. I require competence. You demonstrated neither. That broke something in him. Whatever restraint had been holding back the aggression finally snapped. You embarrassed us, he said quietly, dangerously. In front of everyone. You made us look weak, incompetent, like we couldn't handle basic drills. You are incompetent at those specific skills. That's what the evaluation revealed. Shut your mouth. Corporal Roar, I suggest you reconsider your tone and your position. This conversation is being recorded. Every word you're saying is documenting hostile intent. I don't care about recordings. I care about you understanding that actions have consequences. He moved, quick, aggressive, closing the final distance between them. Grayson reached out, grabbed Kira's shoulder, not a strike. A shove meant to push her back, establish physical dominance. Kira moved with the force, redirected it. Her hand came up, caught Grayson's wrist, rotated it, guided his momentum past her. Simple wrist control, basic technique. Grayson stumbled forward, off balance, not hurt, just controlled. Kira's voice rang out, clear, loud enough for the microphone to capture every syllable. First unauthorized physical contact. Time 21:07 hours. Witness Jim Camera 4. Merritt panicked, grabbed for her arm, clumsy, uncoordinated, just trying to restrain her before this spiraled further. Kira dropped her weight, elbow frame against his grip, broke the hold with a simple lever principle, then swept his forward leg with her rear foot. Basic trip, elementary technique. Merritt went down, not hard, just off balance, landing on the padded mat that Kira had positioned earlier specifically for this purpose. Second unauthorized physical contact, 21:07 plus 4 seconds. Roar rushed from behind, trying to grab her in a rear bear hug, control her arms, end this before she documented anything else. This was the moment, the critical decision point. The instant where everything she'd prepared for came down to execution. Kira felt him coming. Heard his footsteps. Read his approach in the shadow that shifted across the mat. She dropped her hips, rotated under his center line, classic hip throw, ogoshi. The same technique she demonstrated Monday morning. The same one she drilled 10,000 times until it was muscle memory deeper than conscious thought. Roar's momentum plus Kira's pivot equaled catastrophic balance disruption. He flipped, airborne for exactly 0.8 seconds. Then gravity reasserted itself. He landed on his back, hard enough to knock wind from lungs, not hard enough to cause serious injury. The mat absorbed most of the impact, but his head bounced, just slightly, just enough to stun. Kira stepped back immediately, hands visible, open stance, non-aggressive posture despite having just thrown a man twice her size. Third unauthorized physical contact, she said clearly, projecting toward the camera. All 3 contacts initiated against me. All 3 responded to with minimum necessary force. No strikes delivered, self-defense only. Timestamp 21:07 through 21:09 hours. The door opened. Master Chief Sterling Mackenzie entered, unhurried, casual, like he just happened to be walking by. He surveyed the scene, 3 Marines on the ground or recovering balance. One chief standing calmly in the center with her hands visible. "Evening, Chief," he said mildly. "Everything okay here?" "Affirmative, Master Chief." 3 personnel initiated unauthorized physical contact. I responded with defensive techniques only. No injuries sustained, all participants conscious. Mackenzie looked at Roar, still on his back, gasping for air. "That true, Corporal? You initiated contact against a superior non-commissioned officer." Roar couldn't answer yet, couldn't breathe properly. Mackenzie walked to the corner, looked up at camera 4, then back at Kira. "That camera's got audio, doesn't it?" "Affirmative, Master Chief." "So whatever happened here, it's all recorded, video and sound." "Complete documentation, Master Chief." He nodded slowly, walked to the weight bench, saw Kira's phone still recording, saw the timestamp, saw the gloves positioned deliberately to show she'd been unarmed. "Clever, Chief. Thorough, Master Chief." Roar finally managed to sit up. "She attacked us. We came here for a professional discussion, and she—" "I saw the whole thing, Corporal," Mackenzie interrupted. "Been watching the security feed from my office. Watched you enter the gym. Watched you position yourselves in flanking formation. Watched you escalate from verbal confrontation to physical contact. Watched Chief Brennan defend herself using textbook close quarters combat techniques that she, coincidentally, is certified to instruct." Silence. "Now," Mackenzie continued, "you boys have 2 choices. Choice 1, we walk out of here right now. You go to your barracks, she goes to hers. Tomorrow morning, you report to my office and we discuss what I saw on that video feed like professional Marines addressing a serious lapse in judgment. Choice 2, she files assault charges right now. NCIS gets involved tonight. You spend the weekend in the brig waiting for Monday's preliminary hearing." He let that sink in. What's it going to be? Grayson and Merritt looked at Roar, waiting for him to make the call, waiting for leadership from someone who'd led them straight into disaster. Roar stood slowly. His back hurt. His pride hurt worse, but he wasn't stupid enough to miss the escape route Mackenzie was offering. We'll report tomorrow morning, Master Chief. 700 my office, all three of you dismissed. They left quickly, quietly, three men who'd entered confident and departed broken. When the door closed behind them, Mackenzie turned to Kira. You planned every second of that. I documented every second of that, Master Chief. There's a difference. Camera coverage, phone recording, positioned equipment to funnel them into the right spot. That's not documentation, that's tactical preparation. Is there a regulation against being prepared? He almost smiled. No, there is not. He picked up her gloves from the bench, handed them to her. You okay? Affirmative. No contact landed, no injuries sustained. Tooth still hurts, but functional. Mackenzie looked at her for a long moment. You know this doesn't end here. The video shows them initiating contact, shows you defending yourself. But there's going to be people who say you provoked it, set them up, used your position to create a situation where they'd react. Let them say it. The evidence speaks for itself. Evidence isn't always enough. Then I'll make sure there's more evidence than anyone can ignore. He nodded. Tomorrow morning when those three report to my office, I'm recommending formal investigation. NCIS, JAG, the whole apparatus. You ready for that? I've been ready since Friday, Master Chief. I know you have, he paused. For what it's worth, you did good tonight, stayed calm, defended yourself without excessive force, documented everything. Your Bud S instructors would be proud. One of them is standing right here, Master Chief. He smiled then, brief but genuine. Fair winds, Chief. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be busy. After he left, Kira stood alone in the gym for 3 more minutes, reviewing the encounter in her mind. Checking for errors, finding none. She'd given them every opportunity to make the professional choice, every chance to walk away, every possible exit ramp from the road they'd chosen. They'd refused every single one. Now the evidence was overwhelming. Medical documentation from Friday. Evaluation failures from Monday. Video and audio from tonight showing them initiating assault against a superior NCO. 3 separate incidents. 3 different forms of documentation. 3 pieces of a case that couldn't be dismissed or buried or explained away. She gathered her phone, her gloves, walked back to her barracks through the Nevada night. Tomorrow would bring consequences, official investigations, command attention, the machinery of military justice grinding into motion. But tonight, Kira allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, because 2 women had been driven from this base, had filed complaints that disappeared into bureaucratic darkness, had lost faith that the system would ever work for them. Tomorrow morning, when NCIS arrived and the investigation started, those women would know someone had stood up. Someone had documented everything. Someone had forced the system to work even when it didn't want to. Justice delayed was still justice. And documentation, persistent and undeniable, was more powerful than any punch she could have thrown. Kira touched her healing lip one final time. The scar would fade. The tooth would be repaired. The bruises would disappear, but the evidence would remain, permanent, and that was all that mattered. Dawn broke cold and final over Camp Grey Rock. 5:30 reveille sounded like it always did, but the base woke to a morning that felt fundamentally different from the one before. Master Chief Mackenzie had worked through the night. At 2200 hours, he'd contacted the base duty officer, reported the incident, provided preliminary statement, requested NCIS notification and formal investigation initiation. By 100 hours, the security footage from the gym had been downloaded, encrypted, and transmitted to Naval Criminal Investigative Service headquarters. By 300 hours, Special Agent Victoria Wainwright had been assigned the case and was reviewing the evidence from her office in San Diego. By 500 hours, she was airborne, heading toward Nevada with a preliminary case file that made her jaw tighten with professional anger. 3 incidents, escalating pattern, medical documentation, video evidence, audio confirmation, and 1 chief petty officer who documented everything with the precision of someone who understood exactly how military justice worked. At 700 hours exactly, Corporal Vaughn Rohr, Lance Corporal Hollis Grayson, and Lance Corporal Deacon Merritt stood outside Master Chief Mackenzie's office. None of them had slept. All of them looked like they'd spent the night contemplating career-ending mistakes. The door opened. Mackenzie stood there, not alone. Special Agent Wainwright, JAG Officer Lieutenant Commander Bradford Hayes, and Captain Douglas Hartwell, the base commander who'd been woken at 200 hours with news that 3 Marines under his command had assaulted a Navy SEAL instructor. "Gentlemen," Mackenzie said flatly, "come in." They entered. The door closed behind them. Kira wasn't present, didn't need to be. Her evidence spoke without her. Agent Wainwright opened the laptop positioned on Mackenzie's desk, turned it so the 3 Marines could see the screen. "I'm going to show you 3 video clips," she said. Voice professionally neutral. First clip, Friday, 1747 hours, South Equipment Corridor. She played it. Grainy footage from the corner camera that had been offline but apparently recorded to local storage anyway. Clear image of Rohr kicking Kira in the mouth, her head snapping back, blood spraying. Grayson went pale. Second clip, Monday, 700 hours, Physical Training Complex. Training evaluation footage. Every failure, every technical correction. Every moment of incompetence exposed in front of 40 witnesses. Third clip, Monday, 2107 hours, Gym Annex. This one has audio. She played the full confrontation, every word, every physical contact. Kira's calm narration documenting each assault, her defensive responses. The entire encounter preserved in perfect detail. When it finished, silence filled the office like standing water. Captain Hartwell spoke first. "Corporal Rohr, do you dispute any aspect of what's shown in these videos?" Rohr's voice was barely audible. "No, sir." "Do you wish to make a statement explaining your actions?" "No, sir." Hayes, the JAG officer, opened his folder. "For the record, I'm informing you that NCIS is initiating a formal investigation into 3 separate incidents of assault against Chief Petty Officer Kira Brennan. You have the right to legal representation. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used in court-martial proceedings. Do you understand these rights?" 3 voices simultaneous. "Yes, sir." "Do you wish to make any statements at this time?" "No, sir." Wainwright closed her laptop. "Gentlemen, you're restricted to base effective immediately. You will surrender your Liberty cards. You will report twice daily to the duty officer. You will have no contact with Chief Brennan or any potential witnesses. Violation of these restrictions will result in immediate confinement. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." Hartwell stood. Corporal Roar, you're reduced to private effective immediately. Article 15 proceedings will commence pending completion of the NCIS investigation. Grayson, Merritt, same reduction in rank. All three of you are removed from any training duties and reassigned to administrative hold status. Dismissed. They left. Three men who'd entered the Marine Corps with pride and were watching their careers disintegrate in real time. After they were gone, Hartwell turned to Wainwright. "What else do you need from us?" "Full access to personnel records, interview space, and I want to talk to the two female Marines who filed the previous complaints, the ones whose cases were closed as unsubstantiated." Hartwell's expression tightened. "Those were investigated and closed without proper documentation or witness interviews," Wainwright interrupted. "Which is interesting because Chief Brennan's preliminary report suggests a pattern of systematic harassment that extends beyond these three individuals. I'm wondering who made the decision to close those investigations and why." The implication hung in the air like smoke. Hayes pulled a folder from his briefcase. "Captain, I have copies of those complaint files. Both were closed by your office with notation that insufficient evidence existed to proceed. Both complainants transferred within 30 days. Neither was interviewed by a neutral investigator. That's not protocol, sir. That's suppression." Hartwell's jaw worked silently. "Sir," Hayes continued, "I'm recommending the Inspector General conduct a comprehensive review of harassment complaint handling at this facility. Pending that review, any future complaints will be routed through JAG directly, bypassing local command approval." Hartwell knew what that meant. Relief of command, investigation into his leadership, career-ending scrutiny. "Understood," he said quietly. "I'll cooperate fully with the investigation." After Hartwell left, Wainwright looked at Mackenzie. "You trained her?" "Yes, ma'am. Bud S. Class 287. Best student I've had in 30 years. Stubborn as hell, but smart. Always thinking 3 moves ahead. She documented this perfectly. Medical evidence, video footage, audio confirmation, written reports filed through proper channels. This is textbook intelligence operation methodology. That's because it was an intelligence operation. Nav Spec War sent her here undercover to investigate the harassment pattern. She wasn't just documenting her own assault. She was building a case against an entire system that protected abusers." Wainwright smiled thinly. "Well, her case is airtight. Roar's looking at court-martial for assault on a superior NCO. Minimum bad conduct discharge, possible brig time. The other 2 will get Article 15 at minimum." "And Hartwell?" She shook her head. "Hartwell's probably done. IG doesn't look kindly on commanders who bury harassment complaints." "Good," Mackenzie said flatly. "He earned it. Where's Chief Brennan now?" "Her barracks, writing her final report for Nav Spec War. She'll be available for interviews whenever you need her." "I'll need her statement today, detailed account of all 3 incidents. But based on the evidence I've already seen, her testimony is almost secondary. The documentation speaks for itself." Mackenzie nodded. "That was the whole point, make the evidence so overwhelming that her word didn't matter. That personality, credibility, none of it factored into the equation, just facts, timestamps, video, audio, undeniable proof. She's wasted as a hand-to-hand instructor. She should be running investigations." "She's not interested in investigations, ma'am. She's interested in making sure the next woman who gets harassed knows the system can work. That documentation and persistence and refusing to quit actually accomplishes something." Wainwright studied him. You're proud of her. Yes, ma'am, I am. 2 weeks later, the formation was voluntary. Nobody had ordered it. Nobody had suggested it. Word had just spread that Chief Petty Officer Kira Brennan was departing Camp Grey Rock at 900 hours, and personnel who wanted to pay respects could form up at the vehicle yard. 63 people showed up. Marines, sailors, contractors, not everyone, but enough. Kira stood in full dress uniform, Navy service dress blues, ribbons displayed in perfect alignment. Navy Achievement Medal with Combat v Iraq Campaign Medal. Afghanistan Campaign Medal. Global War on Terrorism Service Medal. And centered above them all, the sealed trident that had started this entire chain of events. Master Chief Mackenzie called formation to attention. The investigation had concluded in record time. Video evidence made trials unnecessary. Roar had accepted a court-martial plea agreement. Bad conduct discharge, reduction to E1, 60 days confinement. Grayson and Merritt had taken Article 15 punishment, rank reduction, forfeiture of pay, reassignment. Captain Hartwell had been relieved of command pending IG investigation. The 2 female Marines who'd filed previous complaints had been contacted, their cases reopened, their stories finally heard, and Kira had completed her mission, documented systematic harassment, forced the system to work, proved that silence wasn't weakness when you were building a case. She'd been offered 2 weeks of medical leave. She'd taken 3 days, enough to get her tooth properly repaired and the swelling completely resolved. Then she'd returned to duty, filed her final reports, and prepared to return to Coronado. Now she stood before a formation of people who'd watched her transformation from new girl to something else entirely. Mackenzie had asked if she wanted to say anything. She'd agreed to 2 minutes. She stepped forward, looked across the faces watching her. I came to Camp Grey Rock as an observer, she began, voice steady, projected but not shouted. I was told to document harassment patterns, not engage, not confront, just watch and record. For 3 days I followed those instructions. I observed, I logged, I photographed, I stayed quiet. She paused. On day 4, 3 Marines decided that quiet meant weak. That silence meant I wouldn't fight back. That a woman in a support role had no business evaluating combat Marines. They were wrong about all 3 assumptions. Some nods in the formation, recognition. I didn't come here to prove women can fight. That's already proven. I didn't come here to change minds about gender in combat. Minds change or they don't. I came here to demonstrate one simple truth. Documentation is more powerful than confrontation. Evidence is more effective than anger. And patience, strategic patience, defeats aggression every single time. She looked directly at a cluster of female personnel standing in the second row. 2 Marines, 1 sailor, all watching intently. To the women here, document everything. Trust the system, but verify it's working. Silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. But know when to break that silence. Know when the evidence is sufficient. Know when to force the system to acknowledge what it wants to ignore. Then her gaze shifted to the male Marines, the ones who'd watched her demonstrations, who'd seen their companions fail and learned something from it. To the men here, capability has no gender. Respect is earned through demonstrated competence, not assigned through rank or physiology. When you assume someone is weak because they don't match your expectations, you create vulnerability in your unit. You compromise effectiveness. You become the liability you thought you were identifying. She straightened. I'm returning to Naval Special Warfare Command. I'll continue training operators. I'll continue teaching hand-to-hand combat. And when future students ask me about dealing with harassment, with assault, with systematic institutional failure, I'll tell them about Camp Grey Rock. About 3 Marines who chose violence over professionalism. And about how documentation defeated them without a single complaint, without a single moment of victim status, without anything except patience and evidence. She nodded once. Thank you for your time, fair winds and following seas. Mackenzie called attention. The formation snapped to. He saluted. Kira returned it. Then something unexpected happened. Private First Class Jennifer Hayes stepped forward. Young, nervous, one of the female Marines who'd watched the entire evolution. Chief, permission to speak? Kira nodded. Granted. I just wanted to say thank you for showing us it's possible, for proving the system works when someone makes it work, for not quitting. You're welcome, Private. Don't quit either. I won't, Chief, I promise. Hayes stepped back into formation, but her eyes stayed on Kira with something that looked like hope. The sedan arrived, driver ready, Kira's gear already loaded. She walked toward the vehicle. Mackenzie fell into step beside her. You changed this place, he said quietly. 2 weeks and you changed the entire culture. I didn't change anything, Master Chief. I just exposed what was already here. The culture changes when people like Private Hayes decide they won't accept the status quo, when they document and persist and force accountability. Still, you started it. Someone had to. They reached the sedan. Kira turned to face him one more time. Master Chief, Hell Week 2009, Day 4, I was hypothermic. Ready to quit. You told me SEALs who survive are smarter than SEALs who are just strong. I didn't understand what you meant at the time. And now? Now I understand that strength gets you through the obvious challenges. Intelligence gets you through everything else. Thank you for teaching me that. Mackenzie smiled. Thank you for proving I was right to teach it. Best student I never graduated. Why do you keep saying that? Because you graduated Bud S 9 years ago, but you never stopped learning. Never stopped getting better, never stopped being a student of the craft. He extended his hand. You're not a graduate anymore, Chief, you're a master. Go teach the next generation. She shook his hand, got in the sedan. The driver pulled away. Kira watched Camp Grey Rock shrink in the rear window, the formation dispersing, Mackenzie standing at attention until the vehicle cleared the gate. She pulled out her phone, opened her encrypted messaging app. Found the contact for Captain Sarah Vance at Naval Special Warfare Command. Mission complete. Full documentation attached. 3 subjects court-martialed or pending Article 15. Base commander under investigation. System worked, returning to Coronado. The response came before the sedan reached the highway. Outstanding work, Chief. Report to my office Monday 900. We have another assignment. Different base. Same problem. Interested. Kira looked at the message for a long moment. Thought about 2 women who'd filed complaints and been silenced. Thought about Private Hayes watching with hopeful eyes. Thought about every woman who'd been told to stay quiet, accept the status quo, not make waves. She typed her response, affirmative, send the details, because the mission wasn't really complete. It was just beginning, one base at a time, one documented case at a time. One demonstration that the system could work when someone forced it to. Kira Brennan was a Navy SEAL. She didn't quit. She adapted, she overcame, she persisted, and she had work to do. The sedan merged onto the highway. Nevada desert stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere behind her, Camp Gray Rock continued its routines, but something fundamental had shifted. Some barrier had been broken. Proof wasn't just possible. It was portable, replicable, teachable. And Kira intended to teach it everywhere it was needed. The road ahead was long. The battles weren't finished. The fight for accountability, for justice, for making systems work when they preferred not to, that fight was permanent. But for the first time in a long time, Kira felt something close to satisfaction. Because silence, strategic and documented, had traveled further than any shout could have reached. And the evidence, undeniable and permanent, had spoken louder than any words. Up next, you've got 2 more incredible stories waiting on your screen. If this one hit you, tap to watch the next, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Oh, and drop your city in the comments. I want to see where you're watching from.